In this episode, we talk about the problem of waterlogging and flooding in the city of Bengaluru. We also go over the removal of a civil judge who would allegedly compel lawyers and police officers to touch their ears and perform sit-ups in open court. But first, we talk about the ongoing India-Pakistan tensions. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. After the conclusion of ceasefire talks between India and Pakistan earlier this month, both sides agreed to pause military action, implement confidence-building measures, and gradually draw down their forces.
On May 12th, the DGMO of India, Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, spoke to his Pakistani counterpart, Major General Kashif Abdullah, and this was their second conversation since they agreed to stop all military action.
This is the Indian Express's Amrita Nayak Dutta, who reports on defense for the paper.
During this conversation on May 12th, that both sides agreed that they would consider immediate measures to ensure troop reduction from the borders and forward areas. In fact, an army statement that was issued subsequently had also mentioned that issues related to continuing the commitment that both sides must not fire a single shot or initiate any aggressive inimical action against each other were also discussed during the talks. So this was the formal statement that was issued. Apart from that, we had also reported that both sides were scheduled to exchange plans on the modalities of de-escalation of troops and equipment deployed along the borders further to this talks. So this was formally agreed upon that there would be some sort of de-escalation, and the amount of troops and equipment that was moved to the forward areas during the course of this operation would eventually be moved back to their respective location, indicating a de-escalation.
But now, 2 weeks into the pause, the Indian Army is considering a rebalancing of troop deployments along the border to prevent any kind of escalation. To understand the operational shifts and the positioning of Indian Army, my colleague Ichha Sharma speaks to Amrita in this segment.
Amrita, recently Prime Minister Modi in his address to the nation said that Operation Sindoor is only on a pause. So can you tell us what that practically looks like on the ground?
So this effectively means that there is no active military operation underway at present. And there has been some redeployment of troops and equipment that had moved to operational areas, and there are plans being discussed to bring them back to their original locations. So when you say on pause, this would actively mean there is no active operation that's underway at present, like what we saw earlier this month when there were strikes and counter-strikes by both countries. And when I say that there is no active military operation underway at present, this doesn't mean that the level of alertness has gone down. There's high alertness on ground, and India continues to maintain a strong defensive posture in case of any possible incident from across the border. So that continues, a strong defensive posture continues, and a high level of alertness remains. And what I gather, this is going to be the situation for some time.
And speaking of the past 2 weeks, could you talk about how has the Indian Army's defense posture changed? Like what restrictions have been lifted and what has stayed in place?
So when you talk about restrictions, there were some initial restrictions implemented, like there was some restriction on leave. There were some cancellation of short courses, which military officers, they go through regularly in their career. So there were some restrictions on that. Leaves were not cancelled. However, people going on leave, those were restricted. So these are the kind of things that were being done when everything was on high tempo. Those have been lifted for now. And like I said, there's also some de-escalation plans in works.
And Amrita, you write that unlike Pakistan, India didn't do any large-scale mobilizations. So what kind of troop movements are now being planned?
To put it in simple words, Icha, we've learned that India did not carry out any mass-scale or large-scale mobilization of troops during this operation, unlike Pakistan, which is understood to have brought to the forward locations a lot of troops and a lot of equipment. So India did do some rebalancing of troop and equipment who are already based in J&K. Like some of the troops and equipment which were located somewhere else in the hinterland were moved to certain op locations. So these are some kind of rebalancing which was done. There was no large-scale mobilization in the way, we typically see in a conflict or in a war. So India had not done that. There was reports of mobilization, massive mobilization by Pakistan. So when we talk about what is going to be the situation now, so troop and equipment which had moved to forward locations and to certain op locations, they are most likely to go back to where they had come from. Unless there is, of course, some larger posturing change by the army, that's a different story. But as of now, there are plans to move back troops and equipment to wherever they came from. That effectively means de-escalation of sorts.
And you also write about the confidence-building measures that are being undertaken. So, can you tell us what these measures are on either side to avoid escalations?
Right. So, Icha, the army or India has not publicly spoken about what are the different kind of confidence-building measures that they are discussing. However, typically they would involve reducing troop equipment build-up at borders. It could involve talks at various levels and avoiding any sort of violation. Like, as you would have seen, Icha, even after both sides agreed to a ceasefire, there were aerial violations by drones that was happening for at least 2 days after ceasefire was agreed upon by both sides. So avoiding these kind of violations, avoiding any sort of ceasefire violations on the ground, avoiding aerial violations, reducing build-up of troops at the borders, talking at various levels, sharing de-escalation plans with each other. These are some of the typical confidence-building measures that happen between two militaries, and some of them, if not all, are being done right now so that there's more confidence between both sides to move back to do whatever their original position was.
And lastly, Amrita, we understand that Pakistan has said the ceasefire would be in place till 18th of May, but Indian officials haven't confirmed any date. So where does the understanding actually stand as of now?
So there has been some to and fro about this, no specific clarity from the Indian side. So on May 12, when both sides talked, it was agreed that both sides would consider immediate measures to ensure troop reduction from the borders and forward areas. And apparently aerial violations were also discussed in the meeting. Now, soon after the May 12 meeting, both sides were scheduled to exchange plans on the modalities of de-escalation of troop and equipment which were deployed along the borders. This is what I have gathered. Now, India did not make any official statement about any further meeting beyond May 12. However, 2 days after the May 12 talks, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar had claimed that Pakistan had agreed to extend the ceasefire with India till Sunday. So May 12 talks were on Monday, and then 2 days later, Pakistan had agreed to extend the ceasefire with India till Sunday. So which means, according to Pakistan, there was some talks between at the DGMO levels after the May 12 talks, right? But India has not officially confirmed that. But I have learned that, yes, there were plans to exchange de-escalation plans between both sides within 2 days after the May 12 meeting. Now, without commenting on whether the two sides spoke, the Indian Army had just said that both sides will continue the confidence-building measures to reduce the alertness level. The Army also said that there is no expiry date to the understanding which was reached between the two militaries on May 10th to stop all firing and military action from land, air and sea. So India has constantly maintained since May 12 that there is no expiry date to the ceasefire. Both sides have agreed to a ceasefire at all domains, across all domains, and that kind of stands. Whereas Pakistan had said that, initially it said that the ceasefire would extend to Sunday, and that's all they said. They did not further clarify beyond that. So yes, but if we look at both the statements, one thing is common, that there is a ceasefire in place, and that kind of holds till now.
And next we talk about the problem of waterlogging in the city of Bengaluru. On May 18th, Bengaluru came to a standstill as heavy pre-monsoon thunder showers brought 130 millimeters of rainfall over a span of just 12 hours, leading to the death of 3 people. And while the weather slightly improved over the following days, the severe waterlogging that day once again highlighted a recurring issue that has become an annual menace for the city. This problem leads to widespread flooding and causes significant damage to both lives and property. To understand why this issue persists, its impact on the city, and how the government is responding to it, we are joined by the Indian Express's Sanath Prasad in this segment. Sanath, this is something that has become an annual issue for Bengaluru. Talk about the impact that these heavy rains have on the general public in the city, because this time we understand that there were some casualties reported as well.
Yeah, so talking about the rain-related deaths, I think in Karnataka, I think there were 5. In Bangalore, there were 3. One in Bangalore, one death was due to a wall collapse and a woman died, and the other 2 were electrocutions. And in the rest of Karnataka, the 2 other deaths were related to lightning. And also, I think in some of the places, in some of the houses, say in Kormangla and southeast Bangalore, the residents started moving their kids and the elderly ones to the terrace and to the top floors because they were ready for that impact. That, if the rains were quite intense and that they knew that, it would be flooded. So they started moving, to the terrace and started taking elders to the first floor, the second floor. So that was that.
And Sanath, when we talk about the city, could you tell us which areas were hit the hardest by waterlogging this time?
So this time, some of the areas that was widely affected was the south and the southeast part of Bangalore and parts of East Bangalore as well, such as the Sai layout, which is actually a low-lying area. It's on a lake bed, unfortunately, and that's on the Horamavu side. And then you've got Silkboard Junction, which is south of Bangalore. We have Kormangla, Madiwala, Hosur, like the electronic city, where you have, the Infosys, Wipro, TCS, like it's a manufacturing and IT hub. So that's on the southeast part of Bangalore. That was majorly flooded. And the highest amount of rainfall was recorded in the western part of the region. That's the Rajarajeshwari Nagar in Kengeri. It was close to about 130 mm. There you have the Vrishabhavati river that's flowing. So these are the places that was widely affected this time.
But Sanath, why does this happen? Why is this an annual occurrence for the city?
So Niharika, there's no surprise here, it's the same script that actually unfolds every year. And as you said, it's an annual problem. It's a serial problem. And there are just, 2 to 3 or more factors that actually contributes to such waterlogging every year. One is, Bangalore, if you see the city, like an overview, it was a city of lakes and of interconnected lakes, right? And what happens when you start building, when you concretize these lakes, when there are buildings on these lakes cutting off access. So the rainwater has nowhere to go, right? And that leads to waterlogging. So that's one of the major reasons. Second is the lack of the inadequate drainage system. We are now grappling with a drainage system that cannot take the intensity of rainfall as it stands, right? Say like 105 mm of rainfall, and the stormwater drain is only so much that it cannot accommodate this intensity of rainfall. So what happens naturally, it is oversaturated and the water just stagnates on the road. So that's one of the other major reasons. And you have got homes, residential layouts, which are set up on this, which are encroaching on the stormwater drains. So ideally, then the water has no space to go, and that results to flooding. And the third thing is, the desilting of the stormwater drains. Usually, people just dump garbage and waste right into the stormwater drain, and that clogs the entire drain. And that leaves the rainwater cannot flow through that. So that has to be desilted.
Right, and you also had the opportunity of talking to a few city planners and other experts who are aware of the challenges. So what did they have to say about this?
Right. The experts, say the water conservationists, they are of the view that Bangalore needs a comprehensive master plan for its stormwater drainage system. As I said earlier, the existing drainage system cannot withhold the intensity of rainfall. So you need a complete overhaul of the drainage system, which needs to be built and which needs to have more adequate, space to accommodate this rainfall, so that it actually the outlet towards the lake is smooth. So which is not the case right now. So you need a very comprehensive master plan. In fact, I was talking to a water expert by name Vishwanath, and he tells me that the government that has sought 5,000 crore loan from the World Bank should actually focus on when the funds should be actually used and channelized to building a master plan for the city and the master plan for the stormwater drains for the city. So that's one of the things. And also the other basic stuff includes clearing encroachments. So, when you have a layout on the lake bed, what do? So first of all, it's unfortunate when you have layouts being built on a lake bed and you expect that not to flood. So it doesn't work that way. So we have to address the systemic issue of layouts and buildings and commercial spaces over lake beds and over stormwater drains. So ideally, government should be taking action and cracking down on such illegal authorization. Unauthorized buildings on lake beds and stormwater drains, that has to be cleared. And like every other year, BBMP, that's Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagar Palike, the civic agency responsible, that's like the parent for Bangalore. Every year there's a problem, and every year they're caught napping. It's a summertime when they should be actually desilting and taking, on war footing, they should be carrying out the desilting activities and clearing the stormwater drains, but it's just not happening to 100%. So these are some of the reasons, and this is what the experts are actually pointing out every now and then.
And talking about the government's response, over the years, has the state government taken any steps to improve the situation?
Right. So, the Deputy Chief Minister, B.K. Shivkumar, had just claimed that, out of the 220 odd flood-prone areas, 70% of them have been addressed. But he is not clear on which are these 70% at all. And he says still 30% needs to be addressed, and the government is working on it. Let's remember Niharika. So he was the person who actually said that even if God wants to do anything to Bangalore, he cannot. So that is what this minister had said. So yes, it's like Bangalore sees an annual flooding, urban flooding every now and then and every year repeatedly. It clearly is an indication of the government or successive governments have done nothing about it. It's the same story, the same layouts and the same areas that get flooded, but yet nothing is being done about it as of now.
And Sanath, has this situation prompted any political reactions from the government or the opposition?
So that's again here. It's a back and forth between the opposition, BJP, and the Congress, where the Congress says that, BJP had done nothing. They were in power, so they failed to address, and they can go on complaining, but we are the ones who are coming up with solutions. So that is what the Congress says. Whereas the BJP says that, the Congress government is just splurging money on unwarranted schemes and infrastructure initiatives, but has nothing for Bangalore and has nothing for, to address the flood problem. In fact, let's also recall that, BJP was attacked Congress because they had their 2 years government celebration Ballari, while Bangalore was actually being submerged and was reeling under urban flooding. The Congress administration, along with the leader of opposition at the center, Rahul Gandhi, and Congress National President Mallikarjun Kharge, then Chief Minister Siddaramaiah and T.K. Shivkumar were in Hospet, Bellary, celebrating, marking 2 years of the Congress government. So they faced a huge backlash for it. And the BJP trained guns on them for, having celebrations when Bangalore is flooding. And also, after, Siddaramaiah finished the Ballari event and returned to Bangalore somewhere on Wednesday to visit the flood-affected areas, right? So he was given a red carpet welcome. So, the civic agency had laid out a red carpet at Sai layout so that, so that before his arrival. So that received a lot of backlash, right? And also, just when he was about to go on these tours to inspect the flood-affected regions, there was instant clearing of all the debris, clearing all the slush, clearing of the roads on a war footing. So that goes on to show how selective the civic agency is, right? So it's called like the VVIP treatment. So there's complete negligence and ignorance towards the citizens. But when the chief minister is coming, you roll out a red carpet, you clear the road for them. So the same amount of activities are not undertaken for the citizens, but for a VVIP.
And finally, we turn to Madhya Pradesh, where the High Court has upheld the removal of civil judge Kaustubh Khera following a string of complaints about his conduct in court. These complaints included that Khera allegedly forced lawyers and police officers to touch their ears and perform sit-ups in open court as form of apology during contempt proceedings. According to a report by the Indian Express's Anand Mohan, a division bench of the High Court dismissed Khera's challenge to his removal, stating that it was not disciplinary but based on unsatisfactory performance during his probation period. Khera was appointed a judicial officer in 2019 and was discharged from his service in September 2024 by the Madhya Pradesh government following the recommendation of the High Court Administrative Committee. In his petition, Khera argued that the decision was punitive and made without a formal inquiry. He pointed to 7 complaints which included misbehavior with advocates, initiating and then dropping contempt proceedings against lawyers and police personnel, misbehavior with court staff including women, verbal abuse, threats of physical assault, and chasing staff members off their seats during court hours. One complaint also stated that he had fined a court peon 50 rupees and sentenced him to 2 months in jail without proper authority. Khera claimed that he only initiated contempt proceedings to refer them to the High Court and dropped them once apologies were received. He also defended his actions towards staff as efforts to improve court functioning. However, the High Court ruled that his discharge was not punitive, but the result of poor performance during probation. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's episode was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Ichha Sharma, Shashank Bhargav and me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.